Hey, what's up, everybody? I just want to make another video. I think my last one was on questions and statements and how they're conversational tools for human interaction. Just to give you all some context on kind of who I am and my background, I've sold commercial real estate for, years and years, sold residential real estate, been a recruiter, sales coach, expansion director for a real estate team. And that's kind of my professional background. My personal background's all athletics, racing, stuff like that. And my personal interests are history, philosophy. So the reason I tell you all that is because all of these things that I'm kind of speaking on are just things that I've run into throughout any one of those veins or a combination of them all that I found useful. And I feel like I could just pass on to other people. Feel free to use it at your discretion. If you know someone fighting a battle that could benefit from some of this, I think that's really its best use, is just helping each other out. So with that being said, I'll dive into kind of the next thing. One thing that I kind of rocked my world is something that a lot of, like performance coaches or some of those like guru people on social media and stuff have talked about. I feel like it doesn't really make it out into the masses because of the guys who preach it. They're kind of in a real specific vein of social media. So I figured I'd just break the mold a little bit if I can, and shoot this out to people who maybe wouldn't hear it otherwise. So one of the core principles of human interaction is values and beliefs. And a lot of people conflate the two things. A lot of people maybe aren't clear on what theirs are, and that's okay. Life is a process of testing and figuring those things out. Kind of reminds me of like how we ask little kids what they're going to do for work when they're older. And it's like, that's such a fucking ridiculous question to be asking a kid. Like, you have no idea what their future is going to look like or what's going to happen between when you're asking them. And, they're in a totally different world. They're pretending. So that's just a weird thing to ask a kid. But anyway, yeah. So, values and beliefs, they're different things. Values are about what give you emotional fulfillment. There's really only a handful of them that we pursue as human beings. You can think of it kind of like the color spectrum, like Roy G. Biv. There's only 7, primary colors. Same thing with this. There's only a handful of peak core values that we're all, chasing. They might sound like respect, validation, and love. They might sound like thrill or growth, something in that vein. They might look like security or stability, safety, stimulation, learning, things like that. So, it's pretty, encapsulated. It's not expansive. It's not every word in the dictionary. And those are our values. Okay. And then our beliefs they're more like routes, is a way to think about them. So if you have a peak value, let's use respect. Okay. Respect is our peak value. Realize now that that's backwards for you guys. We're just gonna have to work through that. Beliefs are the routes we take to get to respect. Okay. Something to understand is that values, a lot of people may not even be clear on what their values actually are or should be, but they always have them. So something to keep in mind is you have a peak value right now, in your romantic relationships, in your relationship with yourself, in your professional life. Okay. And you're tinting everything you view or see or witness or are a part of through that lens. And you're gauging it as to whether it checks that box for you or not. So if my peak value is respect, let's say, for an example, I gauge my interactions with people on if that value is being fulfilled or not. The weird thing is, it's not objective. Okay. My view or anyone's view of their value and whether it's getting filled or not is not objective. It's subjective. And we use a weird rule to distinguish whether, if something's traveling along this route, whether it makes it to respect. So if someone sends me a text or gives me affection, gives me a hug or gives me a paycheck, or whatever that looks like, talks to me at the bus stop, that all is taking a route. And that route we can identify as a belief. Okay. We'll give it a label. Beliefs are present in people's verbiage. So whereas a value, someone may not know what value they have as their peak value, they can identify it, or they're in the process of replacing it or figuring it out for themselves. Beliefs, people often know what they are. And even if they don't, they work it into their language subconsciously. So a really good way to identify when someone is speaking about a belief that they have is they use if then. Great example. How would you know if someone were to come up and ask me, let's say I'm interviewing myself for the purpose of showing you guys how to identify a value versus a belief. Hunter, how are you? Good. How are you? Fantastic. Hey, how would you know if you're respected? Oh, well, I don't know. I don't really know. Really? Why don't you ask yourself, how would you really know if you were respected? Well, if I was respected, I guess people wouldn't shout at me. Makes perfect sense. Did you hear it? If then, right? If I was respected, then people wouldn't shout at me. That's just a belief. Can people respect you and still shout at you? Probably, most likely. But if you have that belief, we just filtered out a lot of interaction and information, and we categorized it. All the stuff over here is respect. All the stuff over here is disrespect. And it's not objectively true. We've just made a rule that we probably picked up somewhere. We didn't even consciously choose it. And now we're putting it through that filter and determining whether it fulfills the value or not. Very, very interesting piece of human dynamics is that people will often have the same value, and they'll walk into any kind of relationship, professional, romantic, whatever, and they think that they're fulfilling the same thing, but they have different beliefs around how that value gets fulfilled. So one person, let's use respect again. Two people get in an argument. They both value respect, so they think they're on the same page walking into this disagreement. One person says, if you respect me, then you never raise your voice at me. My family raised me to never raise my voice if I respect somebody. That's person A. Person B says, I also value respect. This is going to be fantastic. However, my family raised me that if we respect each other, we always tell the truth, no matter what. Even if we have to raise our voice, even if we have to cuss and shout, we're going to tell the truth, and that's respect. Can you see how these two people are going to walk into a room thinking they're on the same page, and they're about to have a knockdown drag out over something that they probably can't even articulate to each other? And it's because, one, they're not going to ask each other enough questions, but two, they don't know what their beliefs are around the peak value. So I challenge you guys to, one, identify your peak value. And that's pretty easy to figure out if you just don't overthink it. Just think about what feels good for me, and what feels good for me over a series of interactions. What feels good at the post office, what feels good at home, because it's usually generally you have this overarching thing that just feels awesome for you. It's recognition, or it's respect, or it's validation, or it's safety, whatever that looks like. And then you've got beliefs around how to get there. And you need to be really conscientious about what your beliefs are. And you can even sit down and have an exercise with a friend or someone you trust and have them see if they can get you to say out loud, or at some point you'll just catch yourself doing it now that you're aware. But you'll say, if then, how would you know you're wealthy? Oh, well, if I made $100,000, then I guess I'd be wealthy. And it's like, really? Could you be wealthy without $100,000? Yeah, you could. So why are you picking that? Oh, because I just saw it. My dad always said, if I made $100,000, like, you'll hear people talk like that. So just something to keep in mind. Your beliefs are probably determining a lot of what your interactions and experiences actually feel like in your emotions. And yet we just kind of choose them, out of the blue, or take them from a role model or an environment or culture that we spent our time in. So just be super conscientious of what your beliefs are. And if they're preventing things from serving you and fulfilling your value that are actually trying to get there, you need to be open to adjusting what they are, and being conscientious of that. You'll just live a better life that way. And it'll help you connect with the people when you see that that's the reason you guys are just not, aligning. So hope this was helpful. Hope someone benefits from this. If you guys know somebody that's, fighting a battle and they could use this, feel free to, send them over, or share this with them, or alternatively teach it to them if you feel like you can. It's probably a good thing. I feel like a lot of how you retain information in life is conveying it back to people. So pass it on, pay it forward, and see if you can help someone out. All right, bye.